dependent on organizations like us to provide lifelong free treatment. But children have always been close to our heart, and I know that our Honorable Minister, having been himself a diabetologist for many, many years, he knows the problem of type 1 diabetes. Many of you in the audience are doing a lot of work, and we are now privileged to treat over 600 children with type 1 diabetes with lifelong free supply of insulin, including free insulin pumps for deserving children. But when my late wife was there, she always kept saying that we'll do something for rural people. So we started this project called as the Chunampat Rural Diabetes Project, which is very briefly shown here in this 1-minute video. We have selected a series of villages in various districts in Tamil Nadu, and we employ men and women who otherwise would not have got a job because they are high school dropouts, train them to do blood pressures, blood sugars, and then if they have diabetes, all they have to do is to come inside our van where a complete screening of the eye, kidney, heart, feet can be done completely free of cost. Over the years, this is in the pre-COVID era and in the pre-internet era, and over the years, thousands and thousands of people have benefited from our service to the rural areas. We do high-tech things inside this van, like taking this retinal picture, which can then be zoomed back to our center, where our ophthalmologist can report on that and tell this lady who is sitting 200 kilometers away what we have done. So in this manner, the Tamil Nadu government has also told us, adopt those villages and they are yours. Because every year, give us your feedback of what you've done. A zamindar gave us about 8 acres of land free of cost, and there we built the perhaps the first rural diabetes center that I know of in the world, and there we have been continuously treating thousands of patients free of cost in those villages. The results were stunning because we were able to give awareness to over 200,000 people in not only just these 42 villages which you adopted, but many more. But more importantly, using the lowest cost generic drugs, which our government, the central government has always been saying use low cost generic drugs, and our minister is a great proponent of that. Using the lowest cost sulfonylurea and metformin, we are able to bring down the HbA1c of the entire villages, again to my knowledge for the first time, by using these very low cost drugs which anybody can afford, and they can't afford it, we give it free of cost. The Lancet took a note of this and said that this project seems to be a good model for delivering preventive and therapeutic diabetes healthcare. We've also been favorably reviewed by the BBC, Le Monde in France, Discovery Channel, CNN. Even in the book Jugaad, there's a whole chapter on how even private institutions can work with the government trying to offer free services to the nation. And with that brief introduction, I'd like to thank you all for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We now move on to the inauguration of the 11th Dr. Mohan's International Diabetes Update 2024. I invite all the dignitaries on the dais to inaugurate this function by symbolically lighting the lamp. I request on behalf of the international faculty, I request Dr. Kamlesh Kundi to come onto the dais, and on behalf of the national faculty, I request Dr. A.K. Das from Puthiya to please come onto the dais.
Sir, photograph. Sir. Madam. Madam.
So we have 2 books to release by our Honorable Minister. So we invite Dr. Jitendra Singh to release the second edition of Dr. Mohan's Atlas of Indian Foods. The Food Atlas is unique as it details the nutrient composition, standard portion sizes, and real images of commonly consumed Indian foods. And this is the second edition. So may I request Dr. A. Muruganathan, Director of AG Hospitals, Tirupur, and Dr. Ashok Kumar Das to please come on to the dais and see the first copy of the book. I also request you to release the 7th edition of Dr. Mohan's Handbook of Diabetes Mellitus. The handbook originated as part of the lecture classes taken for the fellow doctors in training at Dr. Mohan's Diabetes Specialty Center, and today we release the revised and updated 7th edition of the same. May I request Dr. Shashank Joshi from Lilati Hospitals, Mumbai, and Dr. Banshi Sabu, Diabetes Care and Hormone Clinic, Ahmedabad, to please come on to the dais and receive the first copy. Thank you, sir, and thanks to all the dignitaries. We now move on to the highlight of this inaugural function, the DMDSC Lifetime Contribution Award, which is being conferred on the Honorable Union Minister, Dr. Jitendra Singh. I would like to kindly invite Dr. V. Mohan to read his citation.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to read out the citation for the DMDSC Lifetime Contribution Award, one of the highest awards being given from this institution, which is being conferred on Dr. Jitendra Singh, MD, MNAMS, FICP, Honorable Union Minister of State, independent charge of the Ministry of Science and Technology and the Ministry of Earth Sciences, Minister of State in the Prime Minister's Office, Minister of State in the Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions, Department of Atomic Energy, and the Department of Space of the Government of India, New Delhi, on Saturday, 27th July 2024. The DMDSC Lifetime Contribution Award was instituted to honor physicians who have contributed significantly in the field of medicine in general and diabetes in particular. The Scientific Committee of DMDSC and MDRF have great pleasure in conferring the DMDSC Lifetime Contribution Award on Dr. Jitendra Singh. Dr. Jitendra Singh completed his MBBS from the Stanley Medical College, so he's very much a Chennai product, and his MD in General Medicine and Fellowship in Diabetes in the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. He has been conferred MNAMS in Diabetes and Endocrinology and Fellowship of the Indian College of Physicians. Dr. Jitendra Singh is a popular physician and diabetes specialist of national and international repute. He has served as Professor of Diabetes and Endocrinology at the Government Medical College, Jammu. He is a committed doctor who has served and continues to serve the poor and needy people in his region. Dr. Jitendra Singh served as the chairman of the National Scientific Diabetes Committee and is on the executive committee of the Research Society for Study of Diabetes in India, RSSDI, India's National Diabetes Society. He was also the joint secretary of DIPSI, the Diabetes and Pregnancy Study Group, the executive board member of Diabetes India, inspector for the Medical Council of India, MCI, examiner for MD, DNB, etc. Hailing from a remote, far-flung village in the hilly district of Doda in Jammu and Kashmir, J&K, Dr. Jitendra Singh rose to make a name for himself in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. He is recognized for his unwavering commitment to social and public service, even from his early years as a student. He resigned from the government job of Professor of Medicine and Endocrinology and devoted himself to the service of society. His reputation is built upon pillars of high integrity, exceptional caliber, a spotless image, and a selfless devotion to serving society. His contributions reflect a steadfast commitment to making a positive impact on the community and beyond. Dr. Jitendra Singh brought Jammu and Kashmir to the forefront through his performance as a national TV panelist of the BJP and its chief spokesman for Jammu and Kashmir. Dr. Jitendra Singh has published several original articles in leading medical journals and has authored 5 books and 3 monograms on diabetes awareness, one of which, titled Diabetes Made Easy, was included in the bestseller section of the World Book Fair held at Pragati Maidan in the year 2002. He has contributed chapters to the API textbook of medicine and several other medicine update books. He has served as member of the National Advisory Board of the Journal of the Association of Physicians of India and as a reviewer for the Journal of the RSSDA, the IJGDC. Dr. Jitendra Singh has done pioneering work on stress diabetes in Kashmiri migrants, and which was published in the International Journal of Diabetes in Developing Countries and hailed by the WHO. He is also a newspaper columnist and has contributed over 5,000 articles in the press, including a widely read syndicated column, Tales of Traversity. Dr. Jitendra Singh is a recipient of several awards, including the Gold Medal Oration Award from JIPMA, Puducherry. He is the first ever medical professional to be conferred the coveted Jamna Devi Jyan Devi Award for Journalism. Thank you. Dr. Jitendra Singh became a Member of Parliament in 2014, defeating the then Minister of Health of the Government of India, Sri Ghulam Nabi Azad. He was immediately made a minister in Prime Minister Modi ji's cabinet. He has been subsequently elected to the 16th, 17th and 18th Lok Sabha from Udhampur constituency 3 times in a row from the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir, now Union Territory, in the years 2014, 2019 and recently in 2024 by a very huge margin, I may add. Moreover, he continues to serve as minister in the Prime Minister's office, PMO's office, continuously in successive terms, in all the 3 successive terms, which no other minister has ever been asked to do, which is a great testimony to his abilities and dedication to the nation. It also shows how much faith our Prime Minister has in him. Rarely has a medical doctor risen to such heights in a political career, and Dr. Jitendra Singh actually reminds us of the legendary Dr. B.C. Roy, who also excelled as a doctor and in politics. Please give him a big round of applause. The scientific committee of Dr. Mohan's Diabetes Special Center and the Madras Diabetes Research Foundation salute you, sir, Dr. Jitendra Singh, on the excellent services rendered by you, not just to the profession, but through your political positions as a minister to so many departments. The fact that you came here for our function, but already 3 other departments of the government had called you this morning, shows how much you devote to each of those departments which you head. So it gives us great pleasure to confer the DMDAC Lifetime Contribution Award on you, which we request you to humbly accept.
kindly request our Chief Guest, Honorable Union Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh, to address the gathering.
I think I should stand on the upper letter so that I look as tall as you. Though it's not easy. Seated on the dais are very respected and illustrious Dr. V. Mohan, Dr. Anjana, Dr. Unni Krishnan. Seated before me, some of the most distinguished members of the fraternity, Dr. Ashok Das, Dr. Muruganathan, Dr. Sheshang, Dr. Bansi, Dr. Sunil, Dr. Rakesh, and almost all of you that are familiar with me, and we've known each other for almost 3 to 4 decades now. Many of our Stanley Indian colleagues there sitting in a single row. At the outset, I have to profusely thank Dr. Mohan. Honestly speaking, I don't deserve this, but he's been very kind. He's been very kind for whatever reasons, because I think there's still much to do. But nevertheless, it's very overwhelming, and the manner he read out the citation, it was, I must confess, also a little embarrassing, being, bracketed with Dr. B.C. Roy, which is, of course, beyond the comprehension or imagination of anyone else. But that is, of course, very encouraging. Thank you very much, Dr. Mohan. And having said that, I have to compliment you, and I have to compliment you for more than one reason. I have to compliment Dr. Mohan for having raised the standards of scientific research, particularly that in diabetes, to the global levels. I have to compliment you for having earned for India a place of prestige in the world of research and development. And I also to compliment you for having brought Chennai and also India as a frontline center of diabetes research in the world. And last but not the least, I have to compliment you for having very illustriously carried forward the legacy of Professor M. Vishwanathan, who in his lifetime itself got to be known as the father of diabetology in India, which is something very unusual. And I'm glad all of us are around to see the legacy being very beautifully passed on to Dr. Anjana. And this also gives me an added pleasure that it virtually sounds like a Stanley Old Boys Club. Because Professor Vishwanathan was our teacher there, Mohan was my senior, Vijay was my junior. And I'm glad that all of us have virtually done hand-holding for each other, like the late Vishwanathan professor did. Coming to the subject that Professor Mohan was talking about, of course all of us know and highly need to tell each other that we are now also virtually having a diabetes epidemic in this country with more than 101 million and even more the number of pre-diabetics, virtually 136 million or so. I think there too, Mohan deserves to be complimented for having churned out easy formula, both for the patients as well as for the doctors. For the doctors, this easy handbook, which I said can be kept on the table of every practicing clinician. And for the patient, the formula of ABC. A for A1C, B for blood pressure, and C for cholesterol. That, in other words, completes the complete trajectory He's virtually traversed the journey from ABC to XYZ and hardly left anything for others, including the number of awards that he's been winning around all over the world, which of course he richly deserves. And I was going through one of his notes just now, where he said that many people don't comply with this ABC. If they do, they might live longer by 60, 50 years. And that reminded me that it is in fact an authentication of what Dr. B.C. Roy's generation had learned by observation. My first guide when I was a junior resident happened to be one of the oldies, the same generation, Dr. Pathania. He was an MBBS student in Edward Medical College, Lahore. And then, of course, when the partition happened, so he came over here. Professor Ahuja came to Madras and he went to Amritsar. So they were contemporaries. So he used to tell us, because he was a medico when you just had insulin, nothing more than that, maybe in the 40s. So he said his teachers used to tell him that incidentally, sometimes it's a blessing to get diabetes, because diabetes live longer than the non-diabetics. Maybe that was their general observation, clinical based, but now we have the authentication reason for that, because maybe they become more disciplined and they take care of their parameters. Maybe they were doing that in a different way about 70 years ago, when you didn't have all these diagnostic and monitoring facilities. But I'm glad that now this has been authenticated and we have reason evidence base to tell our patients. The other aspect which I think Dr. Mohan's institution needs to be complimented is that they have also concentrated on the rural sector, the rural patients, which is often not happening through the corporate hospitals. And more so when rightly one of his notes observes that the rural area is also getting equally impacted. In fact, way back somewhere in 2005 or 2006, there was a paper of mine published in JAPI, the title of which was Breakdown in Rural and Urban Divide. Because all those factors which possibly prevented a rural population from becoming as vulnerable, as susceptible as the urban population were actually vanishing away, and the diabetes is too serious a matter to be left to a diabetologist or an endocrinologist alone. It has a huge cultural, social bearings. So all these things vanish as a whole, and that also involves the disease spectrum. So in a way, when a successful corporate setup also starts taking care of the rural, it not only serves the patient of that area, but it also sets a beautiful example for others to serve. In fact, about 15 years back, I was talking to Trahan, because they have formed an association of corporate hospitals. I said, you better start looking after the rural, otherwise rural will come and protest outside your hospital. And I have also been of the view that whenever the government starts a new corporate hospital, there could be some guideline of setting up an ancillary small setup in the rural area. I'm glad Dr. Mohan and his team has done that voluntarily without being prompted by anybody. I have set an example. And that too, to an extent, on charity basis. Now, as far as this widening spectrum of the non-communicable disease is concerned, actually, I think of course, as our generation has seen, we have actually transited from the era of communicable disease to non-communicable disease. Until about 80s, we were still there, and then somebody wrote that we have now entered into an era of civilized disease. We no longer die of tuberculosis, cholera, or Hazza, or diarrhea, or dysentery. We die of a heart attack and all those things. But the matter of fact is that even though we take pride, particularly in the political class, we take pride in saying that India is a young country, more than 70% population below the 40. But the truth is, because that is only half true, the truth is that though the percentage may be 70% below the age of 40, the absolute number of above 60 is also in the increase. it's not that the oldies are ready to quit the planet to make way for the below 40, 70%. So if in 1947 the lifespan was just about 50 to 55 years, today it's already gone up to 65 years and above, and still on the rise. So we have now a biphasic spectrum of disease as well. And not only on the one hand, we have started getting diseases which happen because we are living long enough. Earlier we didn't live long enough to get into that disease spectrum. But the other challenge is that we are getting disease of the elderly age or the middle age at a younger age. As Dr. Mohan would bear me out, whether it's type 2 diabetes mellitus or young infarctions, etc. And that is going to be a challenge because, as he said, ABC has to be practiced to preserve this youth energy, because and it's not only a responsibility of the healthcare system, I think it's a national responsibility. Because when we talk of 2047 India and we talk of Century India, we should not forget that each and every citizen would have to contribute to the making of that Century India. So how far can we afford to allow these energies to get squandered like this? So in the interest of that, I think all this campaign which has been started by Dr. Mohan and other like-minded people, cost-effective, affordable, accessible healthcare is something that India is looking for. In the government, we have actually, at least on my part, and I've been a very vociferous advocate of that, that the demarcations between the private and the public sector have to be done away with. Because if we have to move beyond from where we are, we cannot move in silos. The contradiction with us is that during the morning walk, we are in a gossip mood because we are trying to relax our minds and bodies. So we say, see, what happened even if India landed on moon? America landed 50 years ago. But we forget that NASA is being run hugely by non-government sources. And ISRO, till about 3 years back, depended on meager resources for the government sector. And that gives me an opportunity also to thank Prime Minister Modi. When we put it across to him, he allowed us to open the space sector to the private sector 3 years back and see the miraculous results. We were apprehensive because this was something very unorthodox happening in the context of the Indian policy-making behavior. But in just 3 years, we were one startup in space sector. Today, we are 199 or 200. And in just about 8 months, beginning from April 1st to 31st of December 2023, we had an investment of more than 1,000 crore from the private sector. Some of our earliest startups like Skyroot, etc., those boys have set up private, they've turned entrepreneurs, flourishing entrepreneurs. One of them has set up a private factory to develop rockets in the private sector, the first of its kind in India. And that has also encouraged me. In the last session only, I brought in a legislation which has now become a law, National Research Foundation, on the same lines as National Research Society of America. But I'm sure there's going to be a better version. I did a number of sittings with Punch, who is of course of Tamil origin, presently heading the American NRS. And we have come out with a better version because our governing body will have a very good assortment of both private and public sector. And we are not confining it only to the scientific sources. Our governing body will also have representatives from the social sector, from the humanities, when we have the asset of traditional knowledge. And I'm glad to share with you that very recently I also set up a traditional knowledge library and digitalized it and named it TKDL because that's how the youngsters remember now. They remember by acronyms. So traditional knowledge digital library. So we have all these assets. So we would have in this National Research Foundation, which we have named Anusandhan because for its Indian entity, it will have representatives from non-scientific areas, sectors as well, so that we could have their inputs also. And more than 60% of the resource would be non-government. Even though in the budget presented the other day by Nirmala Sitaram, she's announced 1 lakh crore for this NRF. But I think much more would be happening from the other sources. And that would make us realize the goal of 2047. Because if we have to be there, we have to follow the global benchmarks, we have to follow the global parameters, we have to follow the global strategies. We can't be depending on these meager government resources and then comparing ourselves with others who are following different strategy. So we are now on a global pathway. And that also is borne out by the fact that the time span between their technology and our technology is also done away with. We are almost real time now. In medical, also in other fields. And non-medical areas, we were actually much behind. The other day, somebody asked me, I said, is there any example? I was talking in one of the universities. I said, the biggest, because these days you are having this Biden-Trump debate recently. So the biggest example is the 1960 debate between Kennedy and Nixon, where Kennedy's oratorial skills turned the tables on Nixon and he won the election through a TV debate. And we in India didn't know what is TV about, we didn't know debate about. We were 15 years behind. It's no longer so. We are now into quantum technology. We are among the 5 or 6 nations in the world. We are into semi-modular reactors. We are ahead of USA because many of our reactors are already in that threshold limit of below 300 megawatt. And this budget also earmarks certain allocations for that. In the space, of course, we are even ahead of many others. Though the ISRO was set up in 1969, the year when Americans landed their first human being, and we were just getting born. So I think now, thanks to the change in the policy making that has happened in the last 10 years, and also opening up the resources, if you visit now, on any given day in Sriharikota, there's a beeline of school and college buses visiting it. There was a time when peeping inside the gate of Sriharikota was considered an offense. You could invite an FIR or a police report. It's the other way around. So I think we have moved out, we have opened up to each other, and that's going to be the way forward. The public-private participation in an equal measure. There were some apprehensions earlier on. We lived in, a different mindset. The private sector always thought of the public sector as bribe takers. So they thought nothing would move in a government office unless you offer bribe. And the government officer would think that every businessman is either a thief or a rogue. So when I initiated this discussion, I said, look here, if we are riding a bus, the thief also has to ride the same bus, the saint also. But the immediate goal is to reach the destination. So regardless of whether you're a thief or a saint, you can't miss the opportunity of reaching the destination. And maybe by getting together, you will learn the good things of each other, without learning, of course, the bad things. And that's another challenge. So there's no other way. I think the world has become global, so all these sectors have to unite. He was talking of the state-of-the-art facility, clinical facility, which is being provided by this center. In fact, I think among the first MPs who started Doctor on Wheels, kind of a campaign based on telemedicine and artificial intelligence in the remotest areas where they have not even seen the face of a doctor. So there's a Medico Young and there's an artificial AI doctor. She responds in the language that you talk. If you talk in Tamil, she talks in Tamil. If you talk in Hindi, she talks in Hindi. If you talk Telugu, and she talks better Tamil than I can talk. She talks better Telugu and puts the patient to the patient enjoys talking to her. That is the kind of her. And then she connects. We have tied up with 3 hospitals, one in Bangalore, one in Hyderabad, one in Gujarat. She connects with the super specialist, and within 40 minutes, 45 minutes, they get the consultation. Of course, it is otherwise a costly. It's a very new avenue for health startups now. But of course, we are doing it out of charity through corporate social responsibility. But one cycle of about 2-3 months costs almost 1 crore. So it's a heavy investment, but I'm sure when we have this joint funding, we can take care of that, because here, of course, we are doing out of the money raised from the public sources. And therefore, I think finally it is the prevention part. And there, maybe government is not able to do as much as the professionals would expect to do. It's not that the government doesn't have the will. Maybe they don't have the kind of resources. But if we come together, as I said, preventive health care is not only the responsibility of a medico, it's a much larger responsibility, a national responsibility, to preserve the youth energies and vitalities for a higher goal, rather than let them squandering away from this complication that target organ damages. And before I conclude, I must once again thank you for this Lifetime Achievement Award. I hope the people back home don't hear this, because in politics it has some other connotations. Usually you give them a lifetime award when you quietly want to hint out that, okay, now this is the time to quit. And please leave this slot for others to occupy. But I'm sure it is not so here. And so very much I bow my head to thank you. I don't think I deserve it, but you have encouraged me by conferring this on me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your enlightening address and also your kind words of appreciation. May I now request Dr. Ranjit Unnikrishnan to please propose the vote of thanks.
Respected dignitaries on the dais, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to propose a vote of thanks at the inaugural function of the Dr. Mohan's International Diabetes Update 2024. On behalf of the management and staff of Dr. Mohan's Group of Diabetes Institutions, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the chief guest of today's function, Honorable Union Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh, for graciously accepting our invitation to inaugurate the Dr. Mohan's International Diabetes Update 2024. I would like to place on record our sincere appreciation and thanks to all our international and national faculty for accepting our invitation and being with us for this diabetes update. We also extend a big thank you to our senior colleagues, academicians, and scientists in the audience, and all the delegates for participating in this meeting. Organizing an international meeting of this magnitude does take a lot of planning and precise execution. We would first like to thank each and every staff of DMDSC, DMDA, and MDRF for their Herculean efforts and precise coordination in making this possible. A big thank you to Dr. Guha Pradeepa for her tireless efforts. We extend our sincere thanks to all our sponsors from the pharmaceutical industry for their generous support. Last but not the least, a big thank you to each and every one of you present here. We hope you will make the most of the academic fees that we have laid out for you. Thank you. I now request you all to kindly rise for the national anthem.
Thank you.